That's a big ass fish. That's a monster, Mike. Good job.
And that's why we're obviously outdoorsmen. And good morning, everybody. I am Mike with Obviously Outdoorsman. Welcome to First Light Talk number 29 with the Obviously Outdoorsman podcast. Today we are talking about aging a deer on the hoof or in the field and just aging a deer in general. All right, the age of a whitetail is the biggest talked about topic next to antler size. Everyone wants to know if the deer they are looking at is a mature buck and is a shooter in their mind. But aging a buck in general, not just on the hoof or in the field, can be a tricky feat. All right, that's not so accurate and it contradicts what most people want to believe. All right, the accuracy for individual biologists ranged from 54.7% to 71.7% for mule deer and 23.8% to 66.7% for white-tailed deer. And this aging was done by 4 biologists from Montana and 2 from Washington considered to be experienced in aging deer. All right, so from 6 biologists, their range of being successful was from 23% to 71%. All right, so that leaves a lot of room for error, and people want to just say their deer is a certain age when it's really, even from scientific data, right, it's kind of hard to age a white-tailed deer or a deer in general. Currently, there are 2 techniques scientifically used to age deer. That would be the tooth replacement and wear and the cementum annuli. Right, tooth eruption and replacement of temporary teeth by permanent teeth can show the age of the deer up to 1.5 years old. After 1.5 years old, tooth wear is used to determine the age. And the tooth wear criteria uses a series of comparisons of tooth characteristics to estimate the deer or estimate the age of the deer. All right. However, this technique for aging deer suffers many inconsistencies due to the variation of nutrition, all right, the amount of grit and dirt and vegetation and soil types, just everything depending what they eat, whether they're just eating shelled corn or just eating acorns or just eating green grass or alfalfa or just leaves and berries. All right, this causes the inconsistencies in this aging technique. But compared to the cementum annuli technique, it uses a cross-section of the primary incisors or the 2 front teeth of the deer to count the number of rings inside the teeth. All right, this technique rests on the idea that a whitetail will have annual growth rings. Think about it like a tree. On how many rings are inside the tree is how old that tree is. All right, this is believed to be the same with the deer in only the front incisors on the deer. All right, and that indicates the age. This technique is assumed to be more accurate than the tooth replacement and wear technique since the age estimation is conducted and assigned in a laboratory setting compared to just observing the jaw of an animal. Right? But however, evidence suggests that this technique may not be any more or less accurate than using the tooth replacement and wear technique. So with the scientific ways of aging deer being subpar at best, and some scientists have a range of varied accuracy from 20% to 70%. All right, to name a few, and this is based off a Wired to Hunt article by the great Steven Rinella. All right, 85% accuracy by a scientist, Hamilton, and this was in the year 2000. All right, and then the next one is from Jacobson and Reiner. They only had a 71% accuracy rate in 1989, and then the last one is from Shackelford in 1981 of only 31% accurate. All right, so if being that scientifically accurate is just a close your eyes, throw a dart at the dartboard, and hope you're correct on the age, can you accurately age a deer on the hoof? All right, you're basically just guessing. But there are definitely ways to be at least as accurate as scientific aging, being it ranges from 30 to 90% success rate. All right, you probably won't be dead on the nose accurate of exact age, but I think you will definitely be able to tell if the animal is mature or not. So at least 4 years old and up, you will be able to tell that compared to being like, this deer is exactly 4.5 years old or exactly 3.5 years old. You can tell if the deer is mature or not mature. All right, first things first, get your eyes off the rack. Contrary to popular belief, the size of the rack has absolutely nothing to do with the age of the deer. I don't know why people think that. If they have a giant rack or very massy antlers, it doesn't mean the deer is older or younger. I have seen many 3.5 years old deer that will swamp a 5-year-old buck with bad genes, right? That's the only thing that matters in a lot of people's eyes. They're like, oh, he's got a big rack, it must be an old deer. It's not true whatsoever. No matter the points, no matter the spread or the mass, there is no correlation to age, so get your eyes off the rack. If you want to try and age a deer, you're looking at his body. That's it. Ideally, if you want to age a buck, you'll want numerous pictures of the deer if you're looking at trail camera pictures, or if you're taking pictures of an animal and you want to know how old it is. All right, you will want numerous pictures of the deer with many angles, and broadside with its head up is most important. All right. If you're getting trail camera pictures, all right, you want trail camera pictures that will show all the proportions of the animal, with the trail camera being parallel to the ground with no upward or downward angles. You want that deer to be exactly the height and like center line of the deer if you want to use trail cam pictures to age a deer. Also, take into consideration that you must learn what a deer looks like in your region that is normal to you. All right, a 5-year-old buck in Florida versus a 5-year-old buck in Missouri will look completely different. All right, even the same as a 5-year-old buck in New Jersey versus a 5-year-old buck in Alberta. They're going to look completely different. So get used to what the deer look like in your region and your state to accurately base this off of that. All right. Also, keep in mind that the rut will throw this off a little bit because of how swollen deer get. And if you want an accurate guess, you want to be able to take pictures from either before or after the rut. But everything else during the rut will be pretty much the same on aging a deer, except for the neck size being that they could swell like twice to 3 times the size that they are in the summertime. All right, there are 5 things that you are looking at when you're trying to age a deer, either by examining trail camera pics or out in the field through your binos. All right, there's 5 things that you're really looking at. You're looking at the shape of the head. A mature buck's head will appear short and deep. You're looking at the body size in general. Younger bucks are thinner, and they basically look like a doe with antlers for the body size for the younger bucks. All right, you're looking at its neck, being that their neck will fill out deeper into the shoulders as buck age. And then you're looking at the shoulders and the back. All right, more specifically, if there's a hump in the back or if it's just a straight line. The stomach, older bucks' stomachs tend to start sagging. All right, so we're actually looking at 6 things. All right, then you're looking at the legs. Young bucks tend to be like all legs, while older bucks look like to just be like short-legged, and they almost look pygmy when they get really old. But if you want to test yourself, there are a bunch of websites on Google to guess a deer's age, to test your knowledge, and there are plenty of images on Google that show good examples, and it's basically like a quiz to go off of. If you want to go on Google and be like, all right, guess a deer's age, you can do that on Google. But going back to number 1, you're looking at like the shape of the head. And like I said, a mature buck's head will appear like short and deep. And what I mean by that, it's going to have like a broad forehead, but the older they get, normally the longer eye to nose. So they're going to have a longer snout when they get older generally, right? Normally a eye to nose on like a 3.5-year-old, 4.5-year-old, 5.5-year-old buck is going to be between like 5-6 inches, right? Once you start getting up to like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old of a deer, that eye to nose ratio is going to start getting up in numbers. And I'm talking like 7-8 inch eye to nose, which is absolutely enormous. And that shows a very old deer. The deer that I got his name was, I named him Bruce. He was an 8.5-year-old white-tailed deer. And I did get this deer's teeth sent out, and that was the cementum annuli testing. I sent it out to deerage.com, and according to deerage.com, they have a 90% success rate across of all of their animals. I don't know how true it is or not true it is, but I did send the teeth of that buck to them because I felt like this deer was super old, and I thought this deer was at least 8 years old, and this deer, they aged at 8.5 years old. And the eye to nose that was measured out by my taxidermist was, I believe, like 7.5, 8 inches, like right there. And he bought the biggest buck mount that they could possibly get. And he said that the hide was still just swimming on this deer. So that buck was just absolutely enormous. And when they get older, it's like their snout gets longer, but their forehead just gets like flat. So that's what you're looking for on a mature buck, just a broad, tight knit face. But if you look at a younger buck, they have a very short eye to nose, and it's very slender, tight face. Once they get older, they get like fatter in the face. All right. Next, we're going to body size. All right. Like I said, younger bucks basically look like doe with antlers, especially during the summer. This is with most of the bucks, even the mature bucks, they look like doe with antlers. Their neck is just super thin, right? Their bodies are just very thin. They don't have their winter coat, and they're not full of testosterone, so they're going to just look frail and skinny. And so that's why judging just body size during the summertime months, it's kind of hard because their necks are so slim and just very small. You basically fit your hands around them. But once you start getting out of the summer and getting like pre-rut or after the rut, that's when you could really look at just body size in general, to where you could just look at the sheer size of the body, and you can just tell if that deer is on the younger side or older side. And you have to look at all of these factors, look at all of these body proportions from the neck to the shoulders to the stomach and everything else. You have to take all that into consideration. You can't just look at the neck and say, okay, that's a 5.5-year-old deer. You have to look at absolutely everything and judge with just your best guess on what that deer is. All right, so after body size, we're going to talk about neck again. All right, once they get older, even not during the rut, their neck starts filling out deeper into the shoulders as bucks age. All right, so they're going to start filling out, and I'm talking their neck is just going to get like wider as they age, not even just during the rut. Like their neck will just continue down right into their shoulders, and then after the shoulders, that's when it kind of dips into the back. And we're going to get into the shoulders next, but the neck will just fill out deeper, and you notice that the front of the neck, the front, like into the front chest of them, it looks thicker, it looks more muscular as they age. All right, next we're talking about the shoulders and the back. All right, and like I said, more specifically, if there's a hump in the back or if it's just a straight line. A lot of times, if it looks like a skateboard ramp where it's just like a J, just coming straight down their neck, and they could just ski right down the neck into the back, and it's just a straight line. All right, that normally means it's a younger buck, and it's probably right at the age of maybe tops 4.5 if there's zero dip in the back after the shoulders. But again, this could be off a faulty trail camera pic. If you only get one picture of the deer and it looks like that and it's an older buck, you have to get multiple trail camera pictures of the deer dead broadside, not bending over, not with its head down feeding, and not looking one way or the other. You have to get multiple pictures of the deer just dead broadside, and maybe just multiple angles at different ranges. Make sure it's flat ground. If it's going to be on a hill or a downward slope or on rocks or an uneven terrain, that could throw off the image and make the animal move in different ways and not just flat ground with its head up. That's going to be the best picture. But if it looks like a straight line from the butt all the way through, that normally means it's from like a 1.5-year-old deer up to like a 4.5-year-old deer. Once they start hitting like 5, 6, 7 years old, that's when that hump after the shoulders into the back really starts getting prominent. And that's what you want to look for in that. All right, next we want to talk about the stomach. All right, the stomach. Older bucks' stomachs tend to start sagging. So like if you look at like an old dog and you look at their stomach, like right in front of their back legs, you can see it's just like all mushy and moving around. Once they start getting older, and it just starts getting all flabby and flobby as they run. All right, it's the same thing with bucks. Once they start getting really old, their lower stomach right in front of their back legs is just like fat and mushy, and it just looks like you could just grab it and it'll just mush all around. That's what you're gonna want to look for in them older bucks. It's not gonna be as big of a difference between like a 1.5-year-old buck to like maybe a 6.5-year-old buck, but once they start getting like really old, and I'm talking like 7, 8, 9, 10, that's when their stomachs really start to sag. All right, and then next onto the legs again. Like I said, Young bucks tend to be like all legs, while older bucks tend to be short-legged. Right? Younger bucks tend to be all legs because their bodies are small at this point, and they're basically growing into their legs when they're young. All right, if you ever seen just like a newborn deer where they're just like flopping all around and the legs are going everywhere, right? And it's the same thing with the young bucks. It's just all legs. They look like their legs are too big for their body, and then they grow into them, and then when they're mature, they look like the proportions are all there perfectly. It looks like the legs fit to the animal, and then once they get older, it looks like their body is so big, it makes their legs look small. So you want to take all of this stuff into consideration when you're trying to age deer on the hoof. And a lot of times, if you're trying to age them quickly, when you're on a hunt and you're in the tree stand and this buck is chasing a doe past you very quickly, a lot of times people just look at the antlers and they go, okay, it's a big enough buck for me. It's probably a mature buck. When in all reality, they haven't looked at the body whatsoever, especially if it's a new buck that they only seen that first time. Right? If you really want to age a deer properly and with your best knowledge, if you get trail camera pictures or if you could watch them out in the field or through your binos for a period of time, you want to do that to get an accurate assessment. Watch the deer for a little bit, watch him move around, look at all the proportions, his legs, his neck, his back, his shoulders, his stomach. You want to look at everything. But if you were to look at one thing on a deer to see how old it was, I would definitely look at that hump in the back, in the shoulders. Because normally, all mature bucks will normally have that hump in the back. And I'm talking right from the neck into the shoulders, and then there's a hump right there into the back, and then it goes like back up. That's normally how you can tell like right away how old they are. You want to look at that, and then maybe for the next thing, I would probably look at how broad its chest is and how like full its chest is. All right, and this is just my own opinion. If you want to look at different things, but if you want to look and be completely accurate, you got to look at all of the proportions of the animal, look at the shoulders, neck, back again, and that's how you are accurately just on the hoof, on the fly, age a deer without killing it and sending its teeth in, which again is only 30 to 90% accurate. So you really don't know when you send the teeth in. It's just a shot in the dark. So your best guess on the hoof at home is probably going to be as good as sending teeth in. So that's just my 2 cents on that topic. But if you want to age a deer on the hoof, follow these tips. And if you are curious to see how good you are aging a deer, just Google up aging a deer. Aging a deer quiz on Google. There's going to be multiple sites up there. I will even link the quiz in the description down below if you guys do want to test this theory out. So thank you guys for listening to this First Light Talk number 29. I am sorry I did not get a podcast out yesterday. I am battling off COVID, and it's really not hitting me that hard. It's just really affecting my voice and my throat. So you could probably hear it in this podcast. I'm a little bit raspy, but I'm still trying to get these podcasts out daily while I'm trying to fight off this stupid COVID. But thank you guys for listening to First Light Talk number 29 and the Obviously Outdoorsman podcast. I am Mike with Obviously Outdoorsman. If you guys are new to the channel, this YouTube channel, Obviously Outdoorsman, or if you're just new to the podcast of Obviously Outdoorsman, all right, follow us. All right, I'm doing these podcasts every single morning. If you subscribe to us, it's definitely going to help us out. It's going to show us that we're doing a good job over here. Our team's doing a good job. You can follow us on all the social medias at Obviously Outdoorsman, and that's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, any podcast platform, YouTube, right? Everywhere, all the social media platforms, we are on there at Obviously Outdoorsman. But thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys have a great day today, whether you're out on the water or you're in the woods or hiking looking for sheds or whatever you're doing, sitting at home enjoying a coffee, eating a piece of cake. All right, I thank you for listening to this podcast and helping us out, and it would really help us out if you would subscribe, follow us, and drop a like and share this video with anyone. All right, thank you guys for listening. I am Mike with Obviously Outdoorsman. Have a great day. Peace.